Another cool feature of jQuery UI is the droppable feature. Basically, it creates a target for you to drop your draggable elements. Try saying that 10 times fast. Anyway, we created previously the draggable boxes, but now in Droppable, you can create a container or a target to drop those boxes on. Now, I have a file here called droppable.html. It's in your course files folder. Go ahead and drag that in here so you can have that to work with. Basically, it just has the container with some more boxes and a droppable container. It also has some corresponding styles, and that will be in your final course files. So again, make sure you have all of that up to date. Now, in the script.js, that's where the magic happens. We're going to work with some droppable. The basic syntax for the droppable method is really just this. I'm going to select the droppable element, the ID that I created. I created a container and styled it to look like a droppable little box or just a big box that you could drop elements on. And then it's just droppable, but there's more involved in here. There's the open and closing curly braces. And then in here, you're going to need to put some more parameters. You need to, by default, have the drop and then colon, and then function, open, closing curly brace, and this is what you need so far. So then basically, this is going to tell the browser once you've dropped an element, a draggable element on this container, then you need to just give some feedback to say, hey, I see that you have dropped something on me. And I'm going to select this, which is going to select the droppable container. And then I'm going to find the span tag, which I have in the HTML. Let me just show you so you can see I'm not making this up. I have the droppable ID, and I have a span in here with just some text. Basically, I'm just going to change that text. So find span and then HTML. I'm going to say, when a box got attitude, drop it like it's hot. Close that string. Now the other, double string here. We're going to make sure that all of this. Okay, I'm going to put a double string because I have a single string in here. There we go. Now I could say find span HTML, or I could just straight up go something like this, dot text, and just change the text of this element. So let's see what happens when you drag an element on the droppable container. When a box got attitude, drop it like it's hot. See how that worked? Let's try another one. When a box got attitude, drop it like it's hot. And you could drop it anywhere. There we go. Pretty cool. Now there's more to the droppable method. You can make something draggable, but you can't, but not let certain elements be droppable. So for example, let's say we wanted box number 1, this one, to be allowed to be dropped, meaning everything else cannot be dropped and it won't give any feedback. So the droppable container won't accept it. So right before the drop here, I'm going to say accept, and then in a string, double or single, box 1, and then comma, because there's going to be another parameter here. So accept box 1. So that means only accept this one. Let's see what happens. When a box got attitude, drop it like it's hot. I'm going to refresh. Drag number 2. Didn't work. That's because it's not accepting it. Accepting this one, though. Cool. Now what you can also do to give some more feedback for if a box isn't going to be allowed to be droppable, you can revert the boxes. So revert the boxes back to their original position if you did something wrong. So let's just show what that looks like. It's basically not within the droppable method, though. It's within the draggable method. So it makes sense because it's an extension of the droppable functionality, but it is a part of the draggable method. So let's choose box 1 and say, comma, revert. And then if it is invalid, so meaning if you didn't drop the box 1 within the droppable container, revert it back to its original position. Let's see if we did that right. So I'm not going to drop it properly. It drops it back. It's saying, hey, you missed. Let's say, what if you had, if you had two droppable boxes, and you could only drop one in one and one in the other. If you dragged, this one was in the wrong one, say this was one right here, and it goes back, then you get that, hey, that one's not the right one. Let's try this one. It's almost like if you're making a kid's game where you needed to drag elements. If you're using your iPad and you dragged a box and it wasn't the matching shape, and then it goes back. I've seen that actually. I was playing some games at IKEA with my daughter on the little screen, and she was playing a game where you would drag a shape into the other shape, so a square into a square, or a circle into a circle, so on and so forth. And if she dragged it in the wrong spot, the box or the circle would go back to its original position. So this is exactly what this is. You're basically creating a kid's game. So if you drag it in the wrong spot, whoops, but if you drag it in the right spot, you nailed it. So that's how that works. You can also revert, let's say box number, I believe we're working with box number 4. That's the ID, box 4. So we're going to go to script here and say box 4 and say revert. Let's see. Well, let's just say invalid. Let's see what happens here if we say the same thing. There we go. So that means it's invalid as well because it's not acceptable. It won't accept that element into the droppable. If I were to say valid, then I think it would just stay there. Yeah. Same goes for this one over here. If I change this to valid, it will revert if you drag it and drop it in the proper spot, which doesn't really make sense, but you can do either or. Now, that's basically how Droppable works. It's an extension of Draggable. And if you want to know more about Droppable, you just have to go to jQueryui.com/droppable. It has all the examples and, again, the demos with the source that you can play around with. A couple other cool demos like shopping cart demos and so on and so forth. But we're going to be doing more cool stuff with jQuery UI coming up, so hang in tight.